There is a town in Pennsylvania where smoke rises from the ground. Not from chimneys, not from factories, from the ground itself. Cracks in the road, vents in the hillside, steam curling up from empty lots where houses used to stand. The town is called Centralia. Population 5, down from over 1,000 in 1980. And underneath those 5 people's feet, right now as you watch this, a fire has been burning continuously since 1962. 63 years, and counting. The fire is burning at depths of up to 300 feet. It covers an estimated 3,700 acres of underground coal tunnels. At its current rate, geologists say it could continue to burn for another 250 years. This is not a legend. This is not a horror movie. This is a real American town, and what happened to it is one of the strangest documented disasters in US history. It started with a trash fire. Let me show you how it ends. The town sits in Columbia County, Pennsylvania, deep in the anthracite coal belt of the Appalachian Mountains. Coal was discovered there in the mid-1800s, and by 1854, a railroad had been built specifically to carry it out of the valley. The first mines opened in 1856. Within a decade, Centralia had a post office, a church, a growing population of miners and their families, mostly Irish immigrants, and a reputation as a hard-working, tight-knit community. At its peak, in the early 1900s, Centralia had over 2,500 residents, 14 active coal mines, multiple churches, hotels, bars, and a full downtown. It was the kind of American town that ran on coal and community. By the 1950s, the coal industry was in decline nationwide. Oil and natural gas had taken over. Most of the mines around Centralia were shutting down, one by one. The tunnels were abandoned. The equipment was hauled away. But the coal itself, the vast, dense seams of anthracite that ran in every direction beneath the town, that was still there. Hundreds of millions of tons of it, just sitting underground, connected by miles of interconnected tunnels, open to the air. Nobody thought about that very much. Nobody thought about what would happen if something down there caught fire. Until 1962. Memorial Day, 1962. The Centralia Borough Council had a problem. The town's landfill, located in an abandoned strip mine pit next to the Oddfellow Cemetery, just outside the borough limits, was overflowing. It was attracting rats. It smelled. The council wanted it cleaned up before the holiday weekend. Their solution was the same one they'd used in previous years. Hire 5 members of the volunteer fire company to set the landfill on fire, burn the trash down, and douse the embers. Simple, routine, done before. On the night of May 27th, the firefighters lit the dump and let it burn. When the visible flames were out, they doused the remains with water and left. 2 days later, residents saw flames again at the landfill, then again a week later. Firefighters returned each time with bulldozers and rakes, stirring through the burned garbage looking for the source. Finally, they found it. At the bottom of the trash pit next to the north wall, a hole, 15 feet wide, several feet deep, hidden under layers of garbage. The pit was supposed to be lined with fire-resistant clay between each layer of trash. It wasn't. The borough had fallen behind schedule, and the clay barrier was incomplete. That hole led directly into the labyrinth of abandoned coal mine tunnels beneath Centralia. The fire had gone underground. Within days, sensors detected lethal levels of carbon monoxide seeping up from the old mine shafts. On August 9th, 1962, all active mines near Centralia were permanently shut down. Workers were pulled out. The tunnels were sealed. The fire, however, could not be sealed. It had already found its fuel, hundreds of millions of tons of anthracite coal, the densest and purest form of coal on Earth, spread through miles of interconnected tunnels with plenty of oxygen flowing through from the surface. The first serious attempt to stop it came immediately. A company was hired to excavate the burning material, dig it out, expose it, extinguish it. They spent months digging. The fire moved faster than they could dig. The project ran out of money in October 1962. They had removed 58,000 cubic yards of earth. The fire had not been stopped. Over the following 16 years, state and federal agencies would spend over $3 million on additional attempts, flushing the tunnels with water, pumping in incombustible slurry, drilling holes and injecting chemicals. Nothing worked. By the late 1970s, Centralia's 1,000-plus residents were still living there. Most of them assumed the situation was being handled. Most of them had no idea how bad it had gotten. Then came 1979. John Coddington was the mayor of Centralia. He also owned a gas station. In 1979, he was checking the fuel level in one of his underground storage tanks, a routine thing, done with a dipstick. He pulled the stick out and noticed it felt unusually warm. So he lowered a thermometer into the tank on a string. The gasoline in the tank was 172 degrees Fahrenheit. Gasoline ignites at around 495 degrees. John Coddington had a tank of near-boiling fuel sitting directly above the spreading underground fire in the middle of a populated town. The gas station was quietly closed and the tanks were emptied. No public announcement was made, but residents were starting to notice other things. Basements that were mysteriously warm. A smell of sulfur that appeared and disappeared without explanation. Gardens where the plants died in patches for no reason. Carbon monoxide detectors going off in the middle of the night. Some residents went to the borough council, some went to the state. They were told the situation was under control. They were told not to worry. Then came February 14th, 1981, Valentine's Day. A 12-year-old boy named Todd Domboski was walking through his grandmother's backyard. His mother had sent him to find out why a group of state politicians was visiting the town. Officials from Harrisburg were there that day, touring Centralia to assess the situation. Todd noticed thin wisps of smoke rising from a grassy area near a tree. He walked over to look. The ground collapsed beneath his feet. A sinkhole, 4 feet wide and 150 feet deep, opened in an instant. Todd fell in and grabbed a tree root with both hands. He hung there, over a 150-foot shaft filled with hot steam and toxic gas. His cousin, 14-year-old Eric Wolfgang, heard him scream. Eric ran over, reached down, and pulled Todd out. The plume of steam rising from the hole was tested immediately. It contained lethal levels of carbon monoxide. Had Todd Domboski not grabbed that root, had he fallen, he would have been dead before he hit the bottom. The Pennsylvania governor and a US congressman happened to be in Centralia that same day. They saw what happened. Within hours, it was on the national news. The cover was off. The country now knew what was underneath Centralia. Todd Domboski survived the sinkhole, but the trauma stayed with him for the rest of his life. He suffered nightmares and post-traumatic stress. He turned to prescribed medication to cope. He died of an overdose on February 4th, 2022. He was 53 years old. After the Domboski incident, the federal government finally moved. In 1984, Congress passed legislation allocating $42 million, equivalent to roughly $130 million today, for a voluntary buyout program. Residents would be paid market value for their homes and relocated at government expense. Most accepted. Over the following years, house after house was sold, emptied, and demolished. Streets that had been residential blocks became empty fields. Churches closed. The school shut down. Businesses left. By 1990, only 63 people remained in Centralia. Some of those remaining residents were not opposed to leaving. They were fighting over the price. The government's assessments of their home's value were, in many cases, insulting. Residents who had lived in the same house for 30 years were being offered amounts that wouldn't cover a down payment elsewhere. Others refused to leave on principle. This was their home. They had been born here. Their parents were buried in the cemeteries on the hill. The fire had been burning for 20 years, and they were still alive. They didn't trust the government's warnings any more than they trusted the government's buyout offers. In 1992, Pennsylvania Governor Bob Casey took the final step. He invoked eminent domain over all remaining properties in Centralia. Every building in the borough was condemned. Every resident was legally ordered to leave. Most did, a few didn't. The holdouts, 7 families at that point, sued the state. The legal battle lasted years. In 2013, the state reached a settlement. The remaining 7 residents could stay in their homes for the rest of their lives. When they died, the properties would revert to the state and be demolished. No one else would ever live in Centralia. No new residents, no rebuilding, no future. The town was being extinguished, one life at a time. In 2002, the US Postal Service discontinued Centralia's zip code. Officially, the town had ceased to exist. 5 people still lived there. Here is the current situation, as of right now. The fire is still burning. It is burning at depths of up to 300 feet. It covers an estimated 3,700 underground acres. It is spreading slowly outward in 4 directions. The Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection states publicly that based on the volume of accessible anthracite coal seam, the fire could burn for another 250 years. Let that land for a second. The year 2275. That is when this fire might finally go out. Surface signs of the fire are visible throughout the borough. Carbon monoxide and other combustion gases, including methane, sulfur dioxide, and hydrogen sulfide, vent from cracks in the ground at unpredictable locations. The Pennsylvania DEP officially advises against walking off established paths in the borough. Sinkholes can open without warning. Most of the buildings are gone. Where houses and stores once stood, there are now flat fields of grass and weeds growing over concrete foundations. Streets still exist, paved, lined with curbs, marked with stop signs, but they lead to nothing. They are roads to empty land. One church remains, the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Ukrainian Catholic Church. It sits on solid rock, not coal, and has not been directly affected by the fire. It still holds services every Sunday. Worshippers drive in from surrounding towns. Some of them are former Centralia residents, coming back to the one building that still stands from their old life. The 4 cemeteries remain. The dead are still there. And then there is Graffiti Highway. For years, a closed stretch of Pennsylvania Route 61, the main road that once ran through Centralia, buckled and cracked by years of subsidence, became one of the most photographed roads in America. Visitors came from across the country to walk its broken surface, covered in layers of spray-painted messages and artwork from thousands of people who had passed through. In April 2020, during the first weeks of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation buried the road under several feet of fill material. The graffiti, the cracks, the steam vents, all of it buried. The most visible evidence of what happened to Centralia was sealed underground. If you've played the video game Silent Hill, or seen the 2006 horror film, you already know Centralia, even if you didn't know you knew it. Silent Hill is a fictional town in a coal mining region, shrouded in fog and ash, where smoke rises from the ground and the streets are abandoned. The town's horror stems from something burning beneath it, a fire that was set deliberately, that went out of control, and that turned the town into something between the living world and hell. Roger Avery, the screenwriter who adapted Silent Hill for film, the same Roger Avery who co-wrote Pulp Fiction, has said publicly that his inspiration for the town came directly from Centralia. His father was a mining engineer, and Avery grew up hearing stories about the town. The sinkholes, the fog, the smoke rising from cracked asphalt, the abandoned streets. He put it all into Silent Hill. The parallel is almost too clean to be real. A town that accidentally set itself on fire, a fire that couldn't be stopped. A population slowly evacuated, leaving behind empty streets and a landscape that looks like the surface of another planet. The game came out in 1999, the movie in 2006. Both became cultural phenomena. The real town, the one that actually burned, has 5 residents. 5 people. 5 people have chosen to remain in a condemned town, on land owned by the state, above a fire that will outlive everyone alive today. They don't give many interviews. They don't explain themselves often. But from the accounts that exist, the reasons are consistent. This is home. Not was, is. One former resident, interviewed years after relocating, described what it felt like to leave. The government check arrived, they packed what they could carry, they drove away, and they never felt like they belonged anywhere again. They had lived in Centralia their whole lives. Their parents were from Centralia. Their children were born there. The place itself, the streets, the hillside, the view from the front porch, was part of who they were. The people who stayed feel that even more strongly. The settlement reached in 2013 is precise and final. The remaining residents can live in their homes until they die. They cannot sell the properties. They cannot transfer ownership. They cannot pass their homes to their children. When the last one is gone, whenever that is, the final buildings will be demolished. The last address will be removed. Whatever remains of Centralia will be returned to the state as open land, and the fire beneath it will keep burning. Unaware, indifferent, patient. Here is what I keep coming back to. The fire started because of a routine decision made by a small town council trying to clean up a landfill before a holiday weekend. 5 volunteers, a trash pit, a clay barrier that wasn't finished, one unsealed hole, 15 feet wide, hidden under garbage. That hole connected to a tunnel that connected to another tunnel that connected to hundreds of millions of tons of coal. And from that one moment, from that one incomplete maintenance job, an entire town was destroyed over the course of 30 years. 1,000 people lost their homes. Streets built in the 1800s are now empty fields. A boy fell into a 150-foot hole in his grandmother's backyard. A mayor discovered his gas station was sitting on near boiling fuel. The government spent over $40 million and could not stop it. And today, right now, 300 feet below a field in Pennsylvania, the fire is still there, burning through coal that formed over millions of years, burning through tunnels dug by miners who have been dead for a century, burning toward a date that none of us will live to see. The town of Centralia is almost gone. The fire that took it is not going anywhere.